Before we talk about integrated marketing communications, I want to talk about marketing in general. That's because I think it's difficult to understand IMC, or integrated marketing communications, without really having a good understanding of what marketing itself is. These concepts are not covered real well in your textbook, so pay close attention. But I would say that even if you've never had any marketing courses before in your life, you already know something about the subject. Think about pricing, for example. Pricing is an important part of marketing, and just by virtue of you being a consumer, you already understand some basic concepts about pricing. If you owned a small business and you raised prices, would you sell more or fewer of the goods that you sell? Probably sales would go down. And if you lowered your prices, sales would probably go up. That's basic economics, supply and demand, but is an important part of the marketing understanding. Also, you know that pricing is linked to how we feel about products and services themselves. In other words, their brand image. Generally, things that cost more are perceived as higher quality. Imagine you go into a restaurant and you don't know anything about the different kinds of steak that are sold there. But you look at the menu and you see T-bones and sirloins and New York strip steaks and all kinds of different cuts of meat, and you don't really know anything about each one of them. But you know what? There's an assumption that the more expensive cuts of beef are probably the better ones. Or maybe think of this example. You're walking down a wine aisle in a grocery store, and you don't know anything about the different wine vintages and all the other aspects of purchasing wine. But there's probably an assumption that those bottles that cost more must be better than those that cost less. That may or may not be accurate, but in marketing, sometimes perceptions are what matter. I'm a guy who has never paid more than about $30 for a pair of jeans, but I know that you can spend a lot more if you want to. I was on the website of a company called True Religion. You can spend $200, $300 and more for a pair of jeans from this company. Now, on one hand, you could say, well, if they'd lower their prices, more people could purchase them and they would sell more. That might be true, but look what it would do to their brand image. If they didn't cost enough, they might not have the status that they do. So it's important to remember that pricing and brand image go hand in hand, and that's why pricing is such an important part of marketing. Marketing is also about products. If you own a small business and you're trying to sell a product that no one wants or needs, you're not going to be very successful. That's why companies spend a tremendous amount of time and effort trying to make sure that they understand customer needs well enough to offer the right products, the right services at the right time. Did you know that about 90% of new products that are introduced into the market fail within the first year? That's amazing when you think about it. And even big companies have big product failures. Google, Microsoft, McDonald's, they've all failed miserably with new products that they've spent millions of dollars introducing. How products get from where they're manufactured to where they're ultimately used by the final consumer is all part of the distribution of marketing, and it's a very important part of the marketing component. Suppose you go into Walmart a couple of weeks before Thanksgiving looking for Thanksgiving decorations, and they don't have any. And they say, well, our next shipment will be here the first part of December. Well, that would be completely ludicrous, wouldn't it? But that would be an indication that the distribution component of their marketing is not working correctly. In the United States, distribution usually works very, very well. Think about it. When was the last time you went into a store to buy a specific product and they were out of it? If you're working on a paper tonight and your printer runs out of ink and you need to go find some, it's very likely you could find a store that's open that has the ink that you want and the cartridges you need at the time that you need it. A lot of people don't really think about distribution and marketing, but without distribution, there is no marketing. Brands are also an important part of marketing, and you know something about brands already. When you look at this slide, you probably are aware of most of these companies, and beyond awareness, you might be familiar with some of them. You might have certain feelings about them. They might be good emotions, poor emotions, or whatever, but branding is all about the way we feel about the products and services that we purchase. In the following lesson, we're going to talk a lot more about branding specifically, but I have just a couple of things here I'd like to illustrate. Which of these companies would you say has more innovative products and services? Well, most people would say Apple, even though they don't really understand all of the Apple products and LG products, etc. It's all about perceptions. Which of these companies do you think is more geared towards children? Most people would say McDonald's, and it's because of the McDonald's experience and the McDonald's products, the Happy Meals, the tie-ins to children's movies, the Playlands, and other things. So our perception of McDonald's is it's more for children. Again, branding is all about perceptions. Sometimes companies have good brands that then we later feel poorly about. The oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico a couple of years ago really tarnished BP's brand. Blockbuster is another company that has seen its brand wane in recent years. A decade ago, Blockbuster was the place to rent movies and games. Now, not so much because of the changing technologies and other things. Blockbuster still exists, but we don't feel the same about it today as we once did. I've always said that when you have a product or a brand that people want to tattoo on their bodies, that's a sure sign that they feel very, very passionate about your brand. Have you ever seen someone with a Harley tattoo? Think of the loyalty and the emotion that conveys towards Harley itself. And if you owned a small business, you would need to let people know that you exist. You need to communicate about your products and services and other things. The promotion is an important part of marketing. You would do advertising, you might do coupons, you might do many other things. Information is communicated by how things are displayed on retailers' shelves. And information is conveyed and products are communicated via things like specialty vehicles and all kinds of other marketing tools and tactics. So again, even if you've never had a marketing education before, you really understand some of these concepts. It's not rocket science. Okay, but what exactly is marketing? How is it defined? Well, you can find all kinds of definitions. This one's from the American Marketing Association, and it talks about an organizational function and processes and creating and communicating and delivering value and managing relationships, etc., etc. It's a lot of words, but what marketing really is all about is finding out what customers want and need and then figuring out how to provide those things to them through the right combination of products, prices, distribution, and promotion. Marketing is both to consumers and to other businesses. Think of all of the effort and resources that Pepsi spends trying to convince you to drink their product. They have the right products packaged in the right packaging with the right labeling and advertised correctly and distribute their you can buy the product where you want it, when you want it. That takes a lot of effort to do that. But think about the marketing that also goes on between Pepsi and other businesses. Pepsi markets their products to restaurants, bars, retailers that sell the product, convenience stores, vending companies, and many other places. That's why we say marketing is both consumer and business to business. And similarities between consumer and business to business or B2B marketing, and there are some differences as well. So let's recap. When you're marketing, there are really 4 factors that you deal with: product, price, place, promotion. All of those things collectively are known as the marketing mix. And they're also called the 4 Ps, and they are controllable factors. An organization can determine what they want their products to be, how they want to distribute it, how they want it priced and promoted. By the way, place is synonymous with distribution. I'll talk more about that in a few slides. A product can be tangible, like the Pepsi example we have been talking about, or it can be intangible. When you purchase the services of a travel agent, or you consult with an attorney or a financial planner, or when you get a haircut. Those are all things that are not real tangible, but they're still considered products in terms of marketing. Pricing is the other component. Pricing is usually money, but it doesn't have to be. If I trade something for something else, the price really isn't money. It's the exchange value that occurs in basis of the trade, but the concept is the same. It's what are you willing to give up to get something that you want. There are all kinds of pricing challenges in the world of marketing. One occurred several years ago between Costco, the discount retailer, and the Omega Watch Corporation. Costco was selling Omega watches below the price at which Omega thought they should be sold. As remember, price and brand image go hand in hand. Omega was concerned that if the price of these watches was too low, people wouldn't feel very good about the brand. Costco was sued by Omega, and this case went all the way to the Supreme Court. And you know what? The Supreme Court ruled that in this case, Omega could control what the price was set at by Costco. I mean, another example would be, think if I bought the computer that you're looking at right now. We agreed on a price, I purchase it, I take it, it's mine. Should I be able to turn around and sell the computer to whoever I want for whatever price I want after you've sold it to me? These are the challenges that marketers sometimes face. As I said, place is the same as distribution. Place doesn't mean place on a shelf or place in a store. It means how does the product get to the place that is sold to the ultimate consumer. So in the example of Pepsi, the place would not be where is Pepsi on a shelf. It would be how did the Pepsi get there to begin with? What distribution issues, what channels of transportation did it go through, and things of that nature. And the final P, the one that we will be focused on most in this class, is promotion. Promotion is advertising, public relations, sales promotion, direct marketing, internet marketing, a variety of things. And we're going to spend most of this class talking about those activities. But remember, the 4 Ps are controllable factors. But there are other things that marketers have to deal with. These are called things in the marketing environment, and one of them is competition. Whenever Southwest Airlines begins flying in and out of a new city, other airlines in that city usually adjust their prices. They're reacting to what the competition is doing. Remember, companies can change their product, price, place, and promotion, but you can't really change what the competition is doing. You can only react to it. Another factor in the marketing environment are economic conditions. Think of how difficult it is to sell expensive products in times when the economy is doing poorly. Starbucks faced this challenge several years ago. In 2008 and 2009, when the economy was doing very poorly, many people were questioning why they would pay more for a coffee product that they felt they might be able to get cheaper somewhere else. Starbucks struggled with this. Should they lower their price so they can keep selling more? They didn't. because they realize that that could also harm their brand. Social factors are another thing in the marketing environment. Social factors are things like trends, fads, movements, attitudes, things like that. Right now, one of the big social factors in the United States is the trend towards healthier eating. Many companies are revising their recipes to include more healthful ingredients. Many schools are restricting what can be sold in hot lunch programs or in vending machines. New York City has a proposal to limit the sale of certain soft drink beverages that are over 20 ounces in size. So there are many things that affect the ability of marketers to do that. Imagine if you're Pepsi. All of a sudden, people are turning against your product because it's perceived as unhealthful. Other social factors include things like the green movement, people wanting to purchase things that are good for the environment and don't leave carbon footprints. There are concerns over how animals are treated in beef processing and chicken processing and turkey processing and other facilities. Many other social factors and attitudes that take root that affect marketers' ability to sell what they want to. Technology is another factor. If you're a traditional marketer and have always relied on paper coupons, and suddenly your customers want electronic coupons or want to participate in coupons by companies like Groupon or things like that, that will affect your ability to market. Or perhaps you're a traditional retailer and you don't have an online presence and more customers want to purchase that way. There are many other examples of technology factors we could think of. Finally, there are many laws and regulations that restrict the ability of companies to do exactly what they want to do. Did you know that most automobile manufacturers must meet certain fuel standards and other safety guidelines put out by government? If you're a financial service company or insurance or a bank, something that I've had a lot of experience in marketing, there are many, many rules in how those products can be marketed and how they cannot be. Ads must contain certain disclosures. You must, whenever you list interest rates, you have to list the annual percentage rates right next to it in type size that's equally as large and prominent and things like that. There are restrictions over what types of lights can be sold, restrictions over certain purchases that public schools and things can make. If you're a telemarketing company, there are restrictions on who you can call, when you can call them. And there are certainly other things as well. Things like the weather. If you're a ski resort trying to promote people to come and visit your resort, what do you do in a winter when there's not a lot of snow? You might not be able to change your product, but you might need to change your pricing or your promotion or some of the other things that you can. The point being is there are many things in the marketing environment that you can't control. Okay, if we say that marketing is all about understanding what it is customers want and need and then delivering it to them, well, how do companies know what customers want? One of the ways is market research, surveys, focus groups, and other things to gauge opinions. We'll spend more time on market research in another lesson. Something else companies do is watch what their competitors are doing. For years, McDonald's watched customers go into Starbucks and order expensive coffee drinks and was concerned that people didn't come to McDonald's and order the same drinks. McDonald's has revamped their coffee menu to provide different products in a different atmosphere and a different ambiance. They got the idea from watching competitors. We'll talk more specifically about McDonald's branding in a few lessons because there's some very interesting things going on with them right now. And sometimes customer needs are understood purely through accident. Post-it notes, the little yellow sticky notes by 3M, Those came about because of people who had needs to mark different pages in church hymnals, and they wanted an adhesive, but something that wasn't too, like tape that would tear pages or things like that. It was kind of an accident that they discovered this need, but they realized it was a need that was not being met and have been very successful with a product that fills that need. Well, if marketing is all about understanding what it is customers want and need, and then filling those needs, does that mean that companies can do anything they want? Well, sometimes there are a lot of gray areas. You're a customer of Ole Miss, inasmuch as you pay your tuition and you receive an education. In a way, you're my customer. But if I ask you, what is it you want and need, you might tell me, I want an A. Well, it would be very easy for me to design this course so that everybody got an A, but how ethical is that? So you see, sometimes it's not always possible to give people exactly what they want. I've had great discussions with students before over things like McDonald's. McDonald's and other fast food companies make products that are arguably not healthy for you. High in fat, high in salt content, high in other ingredients, clogging your arteries, etc., etc. Well, is it ethical for them to be selling food like that when they know that it can cause health problems? But on the other hand, people want those products. One of the biggest product flops McDonald's has ever had was called the McLean Deluxe. It was a healthy hamburger, but guess what? Nobody wanted it. See what happens when you try to fill a need that doesn't exist. We'll talk more about ethics in another presentation. Another thing to remember is that the target market for most organizations isn't just everyone, but it is the people who have the specific desire to buy and have the ability to buy. The market for Ole Miss isn't everybody that goes to college, because not everyone has the desire to go here or has the ability to pay or to otherwise attend courses and take classes here. Perhaps a better way to illustrate target marketing is looking at General Motors. General Motors is the parent company, but there are many different brands and products underneath that brand. There's Chevrolet, the more everyday vehicle. There is Cadillac, the more upscale luxury vehicle. There's Buick, that's kind of in between. And there are many other brands that General Motors has. But the point is, they realize they don't build a car for everyone. The idea is try to build different cars for different people. Finally, I used to ask my students, let's brainstorm about who markets. But the bigger question anymore is, who doesn't market? Everybody markets. Corporations, nonprofit corporations, politicians, monopolies. Did you ever wonder why the U.S. Post Office markets? They have a monopoly. Why do they need to try to sell their products and services? But they do. Even as individuals, we try to market ourselves. Each of us is our own product and trying to put our best foot forward in interview situations or with friendships or meeting potential mates and things like that. The bigger question is, who doesn't market? That concludes this presentation. Thank you.